This is the Hebrew language on the MLPC Languages channel. As in all videos in the channel, we're going to talk about reality and the facts about the language and its history first, and then later in the video, we're going to talk about its grammar. We're going to provide you with an overview of the language's structure and grammar in the second part of the video. The Hebrew language, the language of the Jews, one of the most important ethnic religious groups in history, is spoken today by about 9 million speakers, 9 million people overall, maybe almost 10 million people in the world speak modern Hebrew fluently, of which about 5 million are native speakers. The Hebrew language, as you know, was a variation, a southern variation adapted by the Hebrews of ancient Israel of the Canaanite language, a Semitic language of the past, whose other famous dialect was known as Phoenician, the Phoenician language, spoken in the northern coast of Canaan, which is what we call Lebanon today. So yes, the Hebrews spoke pretty much the same language as the Canaanites. You know, in the Bible, the Canaanites are described as the visceral enemies of the Israelites, of the Hebrews, but as the Hebrews settled there in ancient times, we don't know exactly under what circumstances, exactly when, but based on the Bible, when Abraham migrated from Mesopotamia to the Holy Land, the land of Israel, probably some ancient Canaanite dialect was adopted as they went back from Egypt once again into Israel, into this region of what we call the Holy Land today. Once again, they adopted actually the Canaanite language spoken at the time in the region as their own language. So by the time the Bible was written, the older books of the Bible were written in the time of maybe David and Solomon and a few other historical periods of the time, as slowly the books of the Bible, as those were compiled early in the first millennium before Christ, about 3,000 years ago. The Old Testament was compiled between 3,000, 2,500 years ago, for the most part, based on older history. Of course, the events that it portrays are older, but they were likely maintained as oral tradition or some other texts that we don't know. But the version that we have today of the Bible, of the Old Testament, was written between 3,000 and 2,500, 2,400 years ago, for the most part. So, after that period of 500 years before Christ, the Persian Empire came into the Middle East and adopted Aramaic. Aramaic was a sibling of Canaanite, therefore Hebrew, was a relative of Hebrew, but an Eastern relative spoken between the land of the Levant, this region that we know now as Syria, Lebanon, Jordania, and Israel, Palestine, which is the Levant, and the Mesopotamia. Between Mesopotamia and the Levant, there was the Arameans. The Arameans were a people whose capital city was, whose largest city was Damascus, the city that we know as Damascus today in Syria. And the Aramaic language was already used as a lingua franca, as a language of communication between several peoples of Mesopotamia and the Levant, and the Jews and the Phoenicians and the Babylonians and the Assyrians. So Aramaic was adopted officially in the Persian Empire as the lingua franca of the Middle East, slowly surpassing as a spoken language, as even a native language, the languages of Canaan and the language of Mesopotamia. Never spread to Egypt all that much. Egypt retained the Egyptian language, but those regions in the Middle East from between Persia and the Mediterranean pretty much adopted Aramaic all the way until the Arab conquest, the Islamic Arabic conquest in the 1600s, which spread 1600 after Christ, of course, which spread Arabic, and Arabic therefore started gradually replacing Aramaic until this day. Take a look at my video. You have to watch my video on the Aramaic language, where I explain the history of Aramaic separately, specifically. So Hebrew was then lost as the Jews were in the year 70 after Christ or so, when they were expelled from Israel by the Roman Empire, some 40 years after the alleged death of Jesus, the alleged crucifixion of Jesus. We have the expulsion of the Jews by the Romans, and the Jews have therefore the diaspora. In that process, the Hebrew language was lost. Finally, it was already spoken by a minority of Jews only in their daily lives. Aramaic was already their main language, but both the Aramaic and the Hebrew language were lost as the language of the Jews, and therefore the Jews adopted the language of the various countries that they migrated to. They adopted the European languages. They adopted Arabic. Some of them who stayed in the Middle East retained Aramaic. Aramaic was retained as the language of the Jews in the Middle East until, once again, Arabic took over centuries later. Of course, there's the Samaritans. The Samaritans were a group of Jews that supposedly survived the invasion of the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom of Israel, which was centered around Samaria, by the Assyrians in the year around 800 before Christ, which gave origin to the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The Samaritans are supposed what's left of these 10 lost tribes that either stayed in Samaria in northern Israel or returned from Assyria. But that's another discussion. That's an interesting discussion on the Samaritans. They have a different Bible, different from a Hebrew. They retain a different dialect of Hebrew. I'll make a video about it. As the 19th century came, the Zionist movement started with the intent of bringing back Hebrew, which had been used throughout the centuries of diaspora, of the spread of the Jews throughout the Middle East. The Hebrew language, which was only used occasionally as Jewish people from several different countries, at least the most knowledgeable, the most educated ones from multiple countries, had to communicate with each other. And maybe one spoke Polish, the other spoke German, the other spoke Spanish, the other spoke Arabic. They used sometimes Hebrew as their lingua franca between Jews when they met. In the 19th century, movement started to revitalize Hebrew as the language of, once again, the Jews who would migrate back into what is now Ottoman Palestine, and later to be British Mandate Palestine, to be therefore adopted by the Jews who migrated back into the Holy Land and wanted to reestablish a state of Israel that, as we know, actually happened after Second World War in 1947. Finally, the State of Israel was created, and by then there was already a full-grown project to bring back Hebrew as the native spoken colloquial language of this new State of Israel, which they strongly rejected the idea of making Yiddish, which was the strongest Jewish language spoken by the most Jewish people in Central Europe and Eastern Europe. Yiddish was not accepted as either even a secondary official language. Yiddish was simply not adopted. They said, no, we're going to go back all the way to Hebrew. So they revitalized the language. They coined many new terms to express modern ideas, technological and other abstract and conceptual modern terms that didn't exist in Hebrew. They had to be coined for the modern Hebrew language. And throughout the second half of the 20th century, Hebrew once again was brought back to life in one of perhaps the most impressive case of a almost dead language, at least as a colloquial first native language of a people that had been dead for several centuries, if not a couple of millennia. It was brought back to life in the 20th century, which is pretty impressive to revitalize a language like that. And today the fact that it's spoken by almost 10 million people is pretty impressive as well. The word Hebrew, of course, is a term probably derived from the verb habar. Habar means to cross. It probably refers to the people who crossed the desert first to reach the Holy Land, or maybe cross the Red Sea. So we don't know exactly, but it became Habar, the Habar, Habir. And the word for Canaan was the ethnic name of the people who spoke a language which the Jews adopted throughout history as they settled the region. The Canaanite language was already indigenous to the land, pretty much as the Jews who migrated to Germany developed the Yiddish, which is a Jewish form of German. I would say that Hebrew is a Jewish form of Canaanite. It's very similar. To a certain degree, the Jews of ancient times would be able to talk to the Phoenicians. The Hebrew alphabet was originally the same as the Phoenician Canaanite alphabet, which we can see there on your screen. That older Phoenician Canaanite alphabet used by the Hebrew was replaced during the Persian times with the Aramaic alphabet, which are these beautiful little square letters that we know today as the modern, current Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew alphabet is actually taken from the Arameans. The Arameans developed it first. It became widespread in the Persian times, around 500, 400 before Christ, and replaced the Old Phoenician. Those Old Semitic languages, much like modern Arabic, had a number of sounds that sound pretty weird to modern Europeans. The glottal stop and the pharyngeal stop which still exist in Arabic, were written as the Aleph letter and the Ain letter. Ain means eye of the face. In Hebrew, in Canaanite, the word for eye, just like Arabic, is Ain. Ain begins with the sound Ain, which is a throat. Europeans can't pronounce it normally. It's difficult to make it. Ain, which is written with the letter Ain that you see there. The unvoiced counterpart to Ain was Ha, which is the He of modern Hebrew. Today, the modern Hebrew people, the modern Hebrew speakers, no longer differentiate between these sounds. So the He became just like a He in the mouth, but the He was pronounced inside the throat. He. Different, a different articulation. The letter Kaf was a Qaf, pronounced already almost in the beginning of the throat. Qaf. Different from modern Hebrews, pronounced just like Kaf. The letter Tzadeh, modern Hebrews call it Tzadeh, was probably a laryngalized S, like Sha, like the Sad in the letter Sad in Arabic, which is a sound of S, followed by a slight throaty sound, Ra, Zra, 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 Zra. Modern Hebrews pronounce just like an S. The letters Shin and Sin only differentiate each other in writing by the dot. If the dot is on the right, it's Shin. If the dot is on the left, it's Si. In ancient times, the one with the dot on the left was actually probably like a Sha sound. Sha was Sa and Sha. Sa, Sha. But we're not sure. The letter Ta was probably pronounced as a laryngalized T. Ta. Ancient Hebrew had a lot of lenition. Lenition is a phenomenon when a certain consonant moves up in the sound scale, in the scale of sonority. So, for example, a hard sound becomes a soft sound, or a unvoiced consonant becomes voiced. So, for example, the consonant dialetc, the D sound, between vowels, if not geminated, typically became a the sound. The. That gemination was lost in modern Hebrew. Some geminations were preserved, like the gemination that turns B into V. Another one was Ga and Ha. So there's between vowels, and in certain conditions, the Ga became Ha. But in modern Hebrew, that disappeared as well. Ka became Ha. This still exists in modern Hebrew because only the sounds that exist in European languages were preserved in modern Hebrew. Modern Hebrew is based essentially on the pronunciation of Hebrew by the Central and Eastern European Jews throughout the 17th centuries and onwards. The Pa and Fa lenition still exists, so the P often becomes F in modern Hebrew. In ancient Hebrew, there was probably like a Pa became Pa, or Pa. pa. Modern Hebrew, pa becomes fa. There used to be also the ta becomes tha lenition. That no longer exists because Central European languages do not have, unlike English, they do not have the sound tha. So it's only ta. B becomes V. That's very common. So as you can see here, summarizing, only the ka, ha, ba, va, and pa, fa lenition remains in modern Hebrew. Here's a little comparison of vocabulary between modern Hebrew and Arabic. So here the rechel and rijel means leg or foot. Tachat or tacht means behind. Shalom and shalom becomes peace. Nahar and nachar is a river. Sefer in Hebrew is a book. Sefer is like a character, a digit, a number, or zero in modern Arabic. Katav is he wrote. In Arabic, katab or kataba, and so on. Take a look at the list; it's pretty interesting. And we will continue on to the Hebrew grammar. Hebrew grammar is actually one of the simplest grammars that I've known. It's hard to find a language whose grammar is easier than Hebrew to learn. It's like Arabic, super simplified. Here is the pronoun chart in multiple Semitic languages. You can compare Arabic to Hebrew, to Syriac Aramaic, to Ethiopian, Amharic, okay, the language of Ethiopia. Nothing to do with Aramaic, another language. It's Amharic, not Aramaic, Amharic. And Babylonian, which was one of the Mesopotamian Semitic languages of Antiquity. That's the pronoun chart comparing all of those languages. And here is the Hebrew pronoun chart with the suffix forms. And I'm also providing a few prepositional forms of the pronouns as well. If you want to summarize it, if you want to learn it, I have a summary of Hebrew grammar, and all of those grammar information and charts that are provided on this video can be found in the link below. A link will be provided with a document where most of the grammar, most of the information provided here on Hebrew grammar and vocabulary will be provided in further detail in the document, in the text document provided below the video in the description. Here, a comparison between the personal Semitic suffixes. Those suffixes represent the personal pronouns as possessives, meaning my, your, his, her, or object of the verb, direct object. I see you, he sees me. The me, which is an object of the verb, is realized in traditional Semitic languages as a suffix on the verb. In modern Hebrew, however, the object pronouns are actually realized with a preposition, an empty preposition, a preposition devoid of meaning, that takes the suffix itself, and the verb does not go any longer to the directly onto the verb. It doesn't go directly onto the verb anymore. So that's a difference between biblical Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, where the suffixes of the pronouns went directly onto the verb or the noun if they were possessive, like my car, my house. So my house in ancient Hebrew was baiti. In modern Hebrew is bait sheli. You have to do the shell form, which takes the pronoun instead of putting it directly into. Here an overview of Semitic verbal paradigm. The imperfect and the perfect, which in Hebrew represents the perfect form represents the past of modern Hebrew, and the imperfect form represents the future of modern Hebrew. In Arabic, the imperfect represents the present tense, and the perfect still is the perfect past. But the present tense of modern Hebrew is actually a present participle of the verb. That also exists in Arabic. It also exists in Arabic, but it's originally like an adjective form. That's why the modern Hebrew present tense only varies in gender and number and not in person, because it used to be like a noun. Here's the number in Semitic languages. Feast your eyes. I'm not going to pronounce each and every one of them. They are there for your appreciation, and they will be present in the document provided, linked below. Modern Hebrew is mostly SVO, like European language, subject, verb, object. Like the man ate the apple. Ancient Hebrew was more like VSO, ate the man the apple. That's why in the beginning of the Bible we have created God the earth, the heavens and the earth. In the beginning created God, because the verb goes before its subject. You don't say the man ate the apple, say ate the man the apple. Okay, as ancient Hebrew became modern Hebrew because of the influence of mostly European languages, the Jews started using the standard European form of saying the man ate the apple. It has prepositions, just like ancient Hebrew did. And the noun phrase is typically noun, adjective, and determiner later. So, for example, this big house, you say house, big, this. And the definite article is actually a prefix that is attached to every single element of the noun phrase. The noun takes an article, the adjective takes the definite article, and even the determiner, the word for this, also has a definite article built in. It's pretty different from European languages, so the article is only one separate word. So if you say this big house is the house, the big, the this. It's very different. The verb to be in Hebrew is not used in the present tense. Present tense, I am, you are, he is, we are. You don't use a verb. You say just a pronoun or whatever noun you're talking about, and whatever it is without any linking word. You say the man is Jewish. You say Adam Yehudi, man Jewish. So I am Jewish, ani Yehudi. That's masculine form. I am ani lo Yehudi. Lo is the negative. I am not. He is not. To say he is not, I am not, they are not, we are not. Just say lo. Lo is not. I not Jewish. That's a verb to be in the past and the future. The past and the future forms do exist. So Haiti is I was. Haita and Hayit is you were masculine and you were feminine. Haya is he was. Haita is she was. Hayinu, we were. Haitem, you were. Masculine and Haiten, you were feminine. But this feminine form is usually not used. Typically, modern speakers of Hebrew just use the masculine form in the plural for whatever gender. And Hayu is they were, whatever gender. There used to be, I think, Haina, which is the feminine form for the third person plural, no longer applies, okay? In the future, Ehye, I will be. Tihye, Yihye, Nihye, Tihyu, Yihyu. It's all there. There's an existential particle, two actually, for the present existential. Okay, what's an existential? There is. Merely indicate the presence or the existence of something. Like there is a person in the room. There is a car on the street. There is a house on the mountain. For there is, they use yesh. And for there isn't, they use ein in the present. Okay, in the past and the future, they're going to use the verb to be without any there. Just a verb to be in the present and past, agreeing with the element that's there. Feminine, masculine, plural, singular. The definite article is ha, is the prefix ha. It goes into the noun, onto the adjective as well. So for example, mishpaha is family. Ha mishpaha is the family. Ha mishpaha, hatova, hazot. The family, the good, the this, which is this good family. Ha mishpaha, hatova, hazot. Tov is good. But mishpaha is a feminine noun. How do I know it's a feminine noun? Well, usually nouns ending in a, which is written as an H, the he letter in modern Hebrew. The mishpacha typically are feminine. The words that are masculine typically end in a consonant. So ha-mishpaha, you don't say ha-mishpaha hatov. Hatov would be the masculine form. This is ha-mishpaha hatova. Hazot. If you were to put that in a plural, ha-mishpahot hatovot haele. The plural of zot, which is the feminine of ze, this, is ele. We're going to see that later. Here's the formation of gender words. Typically nouns referring to people not only have a gender, but they also have different forms if you're talking about men or women. So Talmid is a student. Talmidah is a female student. The plural of the masculine is Talmidim, and the plural of the feminine is Talmidot. Typically, the masculine is made with im for the plural. In the plural, the masculine plural is made with im, and ot is the element to form feminine plurals. There are exceptions. There are words that are one gender but make the plural as if they were. Talmid tov a good student. Talmidah tova, a good female student. Talmidim tovim, good students, masculine. Talmidot tovot, good female students. Talmidot tovot. And that's without the article. Talk about good female student. If you were to put the definite article there, you say ha-talmid hatov, the good student. Ha-talmidah hatova, the good female students. Ha-talmidim hatovim, the good male students. Ha-talmidot hatovot, the good female students. Always remember to put the ha article on the noun and on the adjective as well. The comparative of adjectives, like to say big and bigger, fast and faster, is very easy in modern Hebrew. Just say yoter. Yoter means more. So gadol is big. Yoter gadol is bigger. That's it. Put yoter before the adjective. Some words, as I said, have a plural that's not like what their gender is supposed to be. So shana is ear. The plural is not shanot. This is a feminine word. This should be shanot, right? But it makes shanim. Makom is a masculine word. Its plural should be makomim, but it's not, it's makomot. Chalon is a window. It's masculine, but its plural is not chalonim, it's chalonot. Shem is name. It's masculine, but its plural is not shemim, it's shemot. Yom is the day. Its plural, however, is min, but the article, but the vowel changes. Yom becomes yamim, not yomim, yamim. Days. Shanim tovot, but the adjective that goes with it still agrees with the gender of the noun. So shana tova is a good year. Shanim tovot are good years, not shanim tovim. Even though shana makes a plural with im, it's still a feminine word. So the adjective that agrees with it, you still have to go to the feminine plural. And the adjectives, unlike the nouns, they do not have irregular plurals or genders. The plural is always with masculine with im, with feminine with ot. There are no known exceptions to that. So good places is makomot tovim. The good places would be ha makomot hatovim. Even though makom makes a plural with ot, it's a masculine noun. So the adjective tov will have to be in a masculine plural. Makomot tovim. There used to be a dual form, which you still can see in Arabic. In modern Arabic, they still use the dual very wildly, even in the modern vernacular Neo-Arabian languages spoken by the people throughout the Arab world. But in Hebrew, that's already 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, when Hebrew, as you know it today, became a written, registered language. The dual was only used in a few isolated cases, like Yom Yomayim, which meant 2 days. Okay, in modern Hebrew, we just use the word two, shnei, with the plural, yomim, yamim, shnei yamim. That some prepositions are written as a prefix onto the noun that they are referring to. So the preposition, especially the single letter prepositions that are only a single syllable written as a single letter, they're typically written without any space between them and the next word. If they happen to be attached to a word that has a definite article, they will merge with the definite article. So be, we have seen that, for example, ha mishpacha is the family, because mishpacha is family. Ha mishpacha is the family. What about in the family? You don't say beha mishpacha, say ba mishpacha. Ba mishpacha. The preposition le, which means to, or sometimes for, indicates some benefit towards or movement towards a place or towards someone, or something that is given to someone, would also merge with the ha and become la mishpachat, for the family, to the family. La talmid, le ha talmid, which is to the student, la talmid. In modern Hebrew, we no longer attach these pronoun suffixes to the noun, as I said earlier. So, habayit sheli is my house. In ancient Hebrew, we used to say baiti. You put the e in the end, baiti, my house. Bait is house, baiti, my house. In modern Hebrew, you use the definite article, hi baiti, sheli. Shel means which is, like The house which is mine. It comes from Asher li. Asher li, which is to me. Habayit shelcha. Habayit shelcha is the house which is yours. The suffix cha indicates possession by you, masculine singular. Hebrew, both modern and biblical ancient Hebrew, had a marker for the direct object of a verb, a direct complement of a verb, if it's definite only. The accusative, as you know in many languages, the direct object of a verb. For example, the man eats the apple. The apple is the object of the verb to eat. Okay, I see the house. The house is the object of the verb to see. If that object of the verb is a definite noun with a definite article, or with a determiner, or with a possessive, you have to use the word it before it. So you say, Kach et hasefer hazeh. Take this book. Kach is the imperative. Take. Hasefer is the book. It's definite. So in this case, you have to put the et before. Kach et hasefer hazeh. Take the book, this. In pronunciation, it becomes eta. Kach et hasefer, kach hasefer. That's why in the Bible we read, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashmayim ve'et haaretz. Right? In the first verse of the Bible, we see the et. God created the sky and the earth. Bereshit, in the beginning, bara, created, Elohim, God, et hashmayim, the sky, and et haaretz, the earth. For pronouns, you typically use ot plus the pronoun suffix. Hu hara oti. Hu ra'a oti. He saw me. Hu lo ra'a otach. He didn't see you. He didn't see you. There used to be an accusative marker on nouns, just like Arabic had an a or an. You see the accusative, the oblique case in Arabic. It's incredible. The Arabic is actually it looks like the mother language of all Semitic languages because it's actually more morphologically complex than Aramaic or Hebrew or even Mesopotamian languages. Eretz, etza, arza. Now, usually there's a suffix, which used to mark the object or oblique form of nouns, marks a direction. Eretz is earth or land. Arza is to the land, to Israel. Arza. Har is mountain. Hara is to the mountain. Sham, Shama. Sham is there. Shama is towards there, thither. Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. Yerushalayma, to Jerusalem. Some of these forms have fossilized in Hebrew. Already in ancient Hebrew, they were fossilized. They're already pretty inactive as a case marker in ancient language. There is a construct form. The construct form serves to join nouns in a possessive construction in the inverse order as English. For example, the state of Israel or Israel's state in Hebrew is said. You take the word Madinah and you say Madinat Israel. If the word is feminine with the a will become at to join the next word in possessive construction. Madinat Israel, the state of Israel. If the word is plural, Sefer, Sefrim, the Sfarim becomes Sefrei. Sefer Haish, the book of the man. Sefrei Haish, the books of the man. If the word is masculine singular, it doesn't change. Only masculine plural changes and feminine singular. A feminine plural word in ot doesn't change either. Here's the verbs. The verbal conjugation in modern Hebrew. Katavti, I wrote. Katavta, you wrote. Kataft, you wrote, feminine. Katav, he wrote. Katvat, she wrote. Katavnu, we wrote. Katavtem, you guys wrote. Katvu, they wrote. The future, ektov, I will write. Tiktov, you will write, and so on. The present only varies in gender and number because it used to be like a participle, like writing, a writer. Kotev is I writing, so that's I'm writing, I write right now. Kotev in the masculine. A woman would say kotovet, kotovet. In the plural, kotvim, masculine plural, and kotvot in the feminine plural. Another verb here, ratzach, which is to murder. Ratzachti, ratzachta, ratzach, ratzachnu, ratzachtem, ratzachu. Future ertzach, tirtzach, irtzach. That's why you see in one of the Ten Commandments, lo tirtzach, lo tirtzach, thou shalt not kill. So Hebrew, just like most Semitic languages, is based on a consonant root of three consonants. Three consonants, like KTV, codes for the notion of writing. Ratzacha is to murder. Hashava is to think. Hashav, thought. And these words, when it comes to verbs, they can be arranged into binyanim, that is structures, verbal structures, which have their own argument structure. Argument structure in linguistics is how you describe what order or what relation to the verb the doer and the sufferer of the actions of the verb have, how they play along, how they are used by the verb, in which position they are put relative to the verb. The binyanim has a simple and intensive, a causative, a reflexive or cooperative version, a second causative, a second intensive, and another simple verb. The binyanim have active and passive forms. The active forms are simple, intensive, and causative. And the passive forms also have simple, intensive, and causative forms. And a form that's in between passive and active is the reflexive or cooperative. They're doing something to each other. For example, the verb katav. We saw that is like he wrote. Kitev is he carved something. He carved. Because writing used to be about putting like a chisel on the clay or on the wood. So to really write it is to really carve something in the wood. Hiktiv is he dictated something. He made someone write. That's the causative form. You put the he prefix. That's the third binyam. Reciprocal, hit katev. They wrote to each other. They corresponded. They exchanged letters. Huktav, it means he was dictated. Something was dictated. That letter, that content, those words were dictated. The kutav is an intensive. It was the intensive of the first intensive form, which is the passive form of the first intensive. It was carved. And nichtav is just the basic passive. It was written. Nichtav. There are other words with the roots. For example, ktovet is the address. Michtav is a letter. And katava is an article. In other Canaanite dialects, like Phoenician, there used to be an iktatav form for the reflexive, passive, reciprocal. Another verb, achal, he ate. Ichel is he devoured, intensive. He ichil is he fed someone, he made someone eat. That's a causative. And hitachel is to be digested. Barach is to kneel. Nivrech, look at the B becoming a V there. Barach, you don't have nibrech. You have nivrech. That's the lineation. Nivrech is to bless, become blessed, be blessed. Berech is to bless someone, and burach is to be blessed. Mvrach is blessed, just like Arabic Mubarak. Hashav is to think. Hishev is to calculate, intensive, to really think. Hikshil is to estimate, and Hithashel is to take into consideration. Machshav is a computer. Hishuv is calculation, and Hithashvut is consideration. Kanaz is to gather, to put together. Niknaz is to enter. That's to put yourself together with a place. Kines is to join. Hiknis is to let in, to let someone in. And hitkanes is to join as well, with a different, slightly different meaning. The Knesset is the famous Congress of Israel, the Parliament of Israel. That's the place where people gather together, they gather. And it's related to the Arabic word kanisa, which is a church, a Christian church. Halak, to divide. Nichlak, to differ. Hilek, to distribute. Hichlik, to be smooth. And hitchalek is to be divided or to slide. That's a very interesting semantic evolution. Bachar, to choose. Bichel, to prefer. Hivhil, to select. Here for the question words in Hebrew. Ma, what. Mi, who. Epho, where. Le'an, where to. Me'ayim, where from. Matai, when. Ich, how. Kama, how much or how many. Lama, why. And ki means because. Not a question word, but is related to lama. Lama, ki. A few adverbs, common adverbs for a learner. My document linked below will contain further vocabulary, basic vocabulary arranged thematically. And you can also visit my online multilingual dictionary that is customizable and that includes Hebrew in both Hebrew script and transliteration for learners. It also includes Arabic, it includes Chinese, most European languages, Russian, Polish, Croatian, modern Greek, ancient Greek, Latin, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, French, Swedish, German, Dutch. It's a very comprehensive thematic dictionary arranged by groups of meaning, like words of time, words of parts of the body. You can visit the Intuitionary, theintuitionary.com. It's the only of its kind on the internet. Hayom means today. Etmol, yesterday. Machar, tomorrow. Machrotayim, after tomorrow. Baboker, in the morning. Ba'erev, in the afternoon. Yom Yomi, on a daily basis, daily. Achshav, now. Mukdam, before. Meuchar, later. Od meat, soon. Adverbs. Po. It can also be kan, here. Sham, there. Yamin, to the right. Small, to the left. Mihutz, outside of. Rachok, far away. Karov, nearby. Similar to Qariban in Arabic. Zafon, the north. Darom, the south. Mitzrak, the east. And Ma'arav, the west. Okay, so this is the basic overview of grammar in Hebrew. Take a look at the document attached, linked actually below. And you can contact me to learn the basics of Hebrew and other European languages, German, Russian, Latin languages like Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and also Germanic languages, German, Dutch, Swedish, on my mentoring system where I teach languages online. You can even actually choose 2 or more lines simultaneously in our language mentoring system. And we will have. I'm going to give you an online page with contents for you to practice during the week, and then we make our calls once or twice a week in order for me to comment and correct anything that you may have done on your page and teach you the languages in a similar fashion that I explain languages here, but of course 1,000 times deeper in detail. Okay, we'll see each other on the next video.